Hello and welcome to Journeys and Journals. I'm Bernie Martin Beck. I get to talk to the most fascinating people about history. That's what it's all about. The journals that they wrote, of the journeys they were on. My guest is a historian, Peggy, welcome. Peggy Carpenter. I sure appreciate you being available.
It's quite all right.
How many times have you been on this?
I don't know. I've got
Half a dozen, maybe.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Because you tell stories that are so exciting, and I'm on the edge of my seat. Now, not only do you write the stories for the newspaper, here's one of them, but you also put it on canvas, or what's this?
A rock from the quarry, I don't know what it is.
You paint pictures with words and with paints.
Yes.
When did you start painting?
Oh my. Forever.
Forever you've painted?
Yeah, I was just young, I don't remember.
And telling stories, was that part of your family heritage?
Oh, I've told a lot of stories. Got myself into trouble a time or two, and I'm real good at
published many times, Peggy, with
yes.
What do you call these?
Readers Write.
The stories right out of your family?
Oh, yeah. Stuff that I did. I learned real quick not to incorporate family. It's me and nobody else.
So these stories are all really, truly stories?
Oh, absolutely.
Peggy, I was fascinated. This somebody came along and tried to steal your money.
They did steal it. They got away with it.
This is such an incredible story because how often would you I couldn't imagine taking a bad incident like that and making it into a clever story.
Well, the money was gone. And there was no point in getting all wrapped around the axle about it. You know, you just laugh and, hey, they needed it more than I did.
Why don't you go ahead and read it for us?
Okay.
Or just...
Pardon me?
Yeah, just tell us what you wrote.
Well, do you want me to read it or tell it? I mean,
Tell it. I mean, it's the same story, but it's...
Well, I went to the store to get some groceries, and I'm not sure what happened with my purse. I don't know whether I left it in the cart. I have no idea. But I bought groceries and took them to the car and went home. And it was the next morning I asked my kids, I said, have you seen my purse? And one of my kids says, yeah, I saw you come in with it last night. And I thought, later I thought, that kid's not wrapped too tight. But anyway, so I went back down to the store. Of course, no one had seen it down there. And I went back home. And I had just gotten home when somebody delivered a package. I opened it up.
What's in your package?
It was my purse. And I went through my purse, and they had taken my $150 plus all the change, even the pennies. and I thought, I just stood there and looked at it. And I have a keen sense of humor, and all I could do was start laughing. And I thought, well, you know, it's gone, and evidently they needed it more than I did. That's how I looked at it. They needed it more than I did. So I just went about my business. But I noticed that it cost up $5.50 to mail that package. And I thought, well, with all my money, they could afford it.
And had they paid for it?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the strangest situation. I had to laugh. It was just too funny.
So someone was generous with your money.
Yeah, I just stand with my mouth open. I thought most people would have taken it and just thrown it in the garbage and left. But they mailed it back.
Well, I wonder if Mom maybe, we can't know. If only that purse could talk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Every incident you seem to get into, you write a story about it.
Well, I enjoy writing, and if I find it amusing, I figure, well, somebody else might find it amusing too, so I write about it.
And real life is either laugh or cry.
Yeah, yeah.
You're saying you laughed about it.
Oh, yeah, you do. That's just how I'm put together, I guess. But I've had a lot of situations that I just laughed. It might as well. Crying's not going to help any.
Crying's not going to help a bit.
No, not a bit.
Well, is this the day that you can talk about your great-grandparents? How in the world, where did the family come from? Because I know you've got deep roots in pioneer country.
Yes, but we came from England to begin with. Both sides, grandmas and grandpas. And in fact, I asked an Englishman down on G Street, he had a store, he's gone back to England now, but I asked him, I says, is there a Peckham, England? And he says, oh yeah. And then he says, but it's the slums now. And I thought, well, yeah, as long back as that's been, it probably is. And, but he, you know, and then my grandma's maiden name was Cogshell. I always call it Cogshell, but I've looked in the English part of the world and it says Cogshall. So I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. But anyway, there was one of those over there, and I think sometimes the pioneers took their name from the town they came from, and I wonder if that's where they got their names. When they got here, they just...
Either that or the town was named for them. You think maybe they took the town name.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, like so many folks, when they came across the sea, they changed or they took on a name.
Well,
because they maybe didn't even have a name.
Or they were hiding from something. I mean, they could have robbed the bank.
Now you're talking that show I did last year with the two classmates of yours. They had a story they didn't have any idea.
Oh, really?
And one's grandpa married the other one's grandma, but they didn't know how they came together in this wild... You're about to be at a big reunion with those girls, women. Class of 1950 out of the high school.
Mm-hmm. No, I can see everybody. I'm old.
I'm married to her classmates, so I guess that we know who's who. It was a wonderful time. The 50s were, you know, things were, war was over.
Yeah, yeah, it was a good time.
We had plenty of tires and even new cars. But these stories, the first stop that you know that they made was in Douglas County, up in...
Oh, yeah, in Myrtle Creek. Yeah, they perched there, and I don't know, my grandpa was a doctor, and he was a circuit rider, so he had a big circle that he kept on going. But...
Doctor who? What's his name?
You just stumped me. Kincaid, maybe? I don't know.
What I learned about, that there was a woman doctor up in Douglas County later than that. Mm-hmm. And one man said, I'd rather die than have a woman operate on me.
So?
That's your choice.
Go for it.
The stories are about pioneers. Have you ever been to where they lived? I mean, is that...
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. There was a man that lived on the mountain behind our house. I'm way back up there in the timber. And his name was Lum Jones, and he had a brother Al and a brother Tom, and then he had a sister, Donnie. And evidently their parents had died, and the four of them lived together. Donnie did the cooking, and the guys did the mining. But anyway, they had Lum had a cabin up there, and my mom was a school teacher, and my grandpa babysat me. And he was an interesting old feller. I mean, that man, talking about stories. Oh, man, he was full of them. And, but anyway, this Lum, he'd come down off the mountain to buy supplies, And then he always came by Grandpa's house, and because it was close, heading on up the hill. And they would sit and eat apples out of the bucket that Grandpa brought in. And I'd sit there and listen and eat apples. And I hung on every word. And I got to where I was pretty good at telling myself what stories were factual and which ones were, kind of fabricated and stretched out there. Maybe that's where I came across my talent, I don't know. But, oh, he was a sweet old man. And anyway, later, I wanted to, after I got older, I wanted to find out more about him. And they had been logging up there, so the road was pretty easy to follow. And I drove up there one day, way back up in the hills, and here was this shack in the road, and it was built around a huge, big fir tree. I mean, we're talking big fir tree. And he had a gunny sack for a door. And when I would never have done that because, boy, rattlesnakes could come all wandering in. I would never do that. But anyway, and then I went in, and his house, they'd built it over a creek, stream tumbling down the mountain. And I thought, I bet they're the first people in this part of the country that had running water in their house. I can just see them dipping it out, and nothing on the floor, just dirt. And but it just won my heart. It just absolutely, I guess I'm put together different than most women, but I thought, what a neat way to live. What a neat way. I wouldn't have to sweep. And I bet the cobwebs, probably the spiders didn't even want to live there.
No.
But in fact, I've been going to paint a picture of that little cabin.
Well, speaking of painting, you've painted hundreds of pictures.
Oh, yeah. Oh, lots and lots and lots.
And when I asked you to please bring some today, you said, I've sent them all off to a studio in California. But I had one she gave me a long time ago. I saw it, and I said, oh, Peggy, did you see that forest fire? I was there when I was a kid. It was up out of, sure.
You're getting one of my moments.
I just did.
Getting old's a lot of fun.
Cave Junction Way.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't quite to Cave Junction, and there was a huge fire when the Mexicans were here picking hops.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
But because they had this labor force available, they took them up to fight the fire, because that took precedence over everything. And my aunt was the nurse, Spanish-speaking nurse for the Mexican braceros, we called them back then, and that was like this. When we drove that little road out, they said, you better get out of here, and it was already red and hot. Have you been to fires like that?
Oh, my, yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Tell me still.
Well, there's no story to tell other than I've been there, and that's when I found out that the flames aren't red. I didn't know that. And when I got there, I thought, whoa, that's not red. That's orange and yellow and white and all these colors mixed in together. That was a real awakening for me.
Speaking of that, this is the artist talking.
Oh, okay.
What's your favorite subjects to paint?
What I know, I love the mountains. I go up and spend nights overnight in the mountains, all by myself. And the trees, and you see a tree with the sunshine on it, and oh man, there's nothing like mountains and trees. And that little old Barney, I used to call him, and he'd go up in the mountains. And bless his little heart, he'd be all humped up in the front seat, and he'd be looking like this. And he'd say, see that tree over there? And I'd go, yeah, I see it. And he goes, look how straight it is. Look at the color of the bark. I mean, and he'd say, look at that mountain over there. Look at the color on the sun shining on the snow. And I thought, he's like me. No wonder we were friends. He was a good old guy.
Peggy introduced me to Barney, and he had a garden and a little sign out front that you could stop and buy vegetables from him.
Yeah.
And he was old then.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he was short and getting shorter. Well, Peggy and I lost a dear and precious friend this year.
I just adored him. Absolutely adored him.
He said to me, he said, on our dozens of visits, that when his wife died, he just decided to move downstairs. And it was what you and I probably call the root cellar. Dug in the house. And that was adequate for him now that the wife was gone.
Yeah.
90, how old?
He was 98. I went to his 97th birthday, so he was almost 98.
And loved to talk. And I loved to listen.
Yeah.
And
Oh, go ahead.
he had a name for you.
Oh, he had a lot of names for me. I'd call him up, hey, Barney, what you doing? And he'd say, well, I was doing real good until you called. I just adored him. But he and I got along real well because we, he'd just smart-mouth me and I'd smart-mouth him. Yeah, he was a neat old guy.
Oh, Peggy brought Barney to our 50th wedding anniversary, and I was so happy because, I don't know how many times Barney got out socially.
Yeah.
But he was kind of most welcome and obviously.
Yeah, he was married to an Indian lady. He came from Canada. And he was really all for the Indians. And I told him, well, hey, I've got Cherokee and Choctaw in me. And I says, and I'm all for them too. And that fellow that at the Farmers, he's a Cherokee, sweetest man you ever want to meet. And Barney and he were good friends. But they did the same thing, smart-mouthed each other. Yeah, they were neat guys.
Life is kind of tough.
It can get that way.
And you might just as well turn your face upside down and then put a smile back on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only two ways it can go, and why not? Peggy, you've made history. I mean, it's incredible how a gal from, where are you from?
Right here.
Williams?
Well, I was born here in Grass Pass, and they carted me out to Williams.
Carted you out. A family place, a big spread out in Williams.
Well, 40 acres.
Do you know how your family came by that?
Well, it was part of, my grandpa had, I don't know how many sections. I don't know how much land he had, but a lot. And my dad gave him $1 for the 40 acres that we lived on. And that's how we came by that. That's the most beautiful spot in Williams, I think.
And I understand from a previous show that your mom was actually born in Williamsburg. It was across the creek. They changed the town. I don't know why. You were up there one time to...
Yeah, I took Mom up there and we walked around and went through one old house. And it struck Mom, because she was a pioneer at heart. And she looked in that old house, and then she climbed upstairs and looked around. And when she got home, she wrote a poem about it. And she and I were, I saw a picture of my family, all of us kids, and in the corner of the living room, there was a big hornet nest about so, hanging on the wall. There was some hanging from deer horns. And I mean, there was all kinds of things that you'd find out in the forest. And I thought, that's where I got my
love for nature.
Yeah, and I stop and pick up acorns and pine cones and that, what is it, falls out of the trees? I don't know, it's fungi or something that falls out of the trees. I picked that up and carted it in the house, and I was looking at it today and I thought, you know, if I move, I'm going to have to get rid of all this stuff. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to.
Well, now, Peggy, you say move. You've got one room that's going to take a truck.
Well, no, I gave my books to the library, so.
How many books do you think you had total?
Well, 3,000. And I took, I don't know how many hundreds. My daughter went with me. We went up to the back door of the library, and they brought out a bunch of these things that you put the books on to cart them back inside. And as soon as they got them all taken, gone, I couldn't see them anymore. I went around to the front door without even thinking. I went around the front door, came in, and headed right back there where they have some books for sale. And I still do that. And I think, I can't do this. This is not something I can do anymore. You got to leave the books alone. It's hard.
3,000 books. And tell me, I happen not to have the gift of reading, but how many of 3,000 had you read?
Oh, a big percent of them.
And some of them over again?
Oh yeah. The good ones that I really, really liked, I read several times.
Because you have such an incredible vocabulary, and I don't know if you brought it to your writing or if your writing has increased it, but you have two different vernaculars.
Yeah. I know some old friends of mine, they laugh and they said it sounds just like Peggy talking. Talking. You know, that's how I talk. I isn't talking. I'm not that, what's the word? I'm a hillbilly. And I like being a hillbilly. Nothing wrong with being a hillbilly. I would prefer being at the top of some mountain having a bear peek in at me than downtown having the police look at me and tell me I'm ready to move out of here, lady.
Well, because Peggy has this unique education in art and in writing and so many other things, let's talk about the birds and the bees that you know about.
Oh, there's a white crow up at my house. My jaw about dropped off. A beautiful white crow flying around the yard with all the other black ones. And I thought, boy, oh boy, is that something or what? When I was a kid, I saw an albino squirrel, an albino gray squirrel, if you understand that one.
Yes, I do.
But yeah, a beautiful white crow. And he had just a little, it looked like he was wearing glasses. He had little white, black things around his eyes.
Oh, wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, I've been thinking of writing about that for kids. Mm-hmm. But then I've written more crow stories, and they tell me sometimes that I think of something else.
Oh, well, now where is that published? The kids' stories?
Well, our own
at Pacific Press.
Pacific Press, and then there's a magazine, children's stories of the God's creation, but I can't think of the name of it. It's
so there's many different places you folks will see Peggy Carpenter.
Yeah,
or Peggy Peckham Carpenter.
No, just Peggy Carpenter, and if you want to read a lot of nonsense, you just.
Well, she gets insight into nature that I have seen few people. I mean, the stories that I have heard about you going to the mother hen story, I think of it so often. Briefly tell that fair story.
Now, which mother hen story are we referring to here?
There was a chicken who had a bunch of little chicks, and she
hatched off,
and she saw a bird fly.
Oh, yeah. That old Mama Banty. She had 25 little babies. Can you imagine? She was such a little wart. I don't know if she got her feathers over, but yeah, she hatched off with 25 babies, and Mama said she'll never raise them. But, and like the story said, there's an old chicken hawk. He lived around our house. There are all kinds of goodies. And anyway, he tried to get a few of them, but she just slapped the dickens out of him, and that ended it. He never bothered her again.
And where did the chickens go?
Uh,
She just,
Oh, well, yes. Well, when she got through thrashing that hawk, then she wandered over here, and the babies kind of clustered around her.
under her wings.
Yeah.
I just love that story because
Yeah.
even a little person can
Yeah.
cover people.
I always think of that mama hen that had burned up, and all of her little babies were underneath her. They were fine, but mama she never moved. She kept them safe.
Now that
I could have gone all day without telling that one, but anyway.
that was a forest fire too.
Yeah, yeah.
Fire has done a lot, but one of the wonderful things it does, it clears the underbrush. I'm told it takes away disease-producing spores and such.
I suppose.
And that was cool burning out of a different generation.
But see now this, I think all the little lizards and all the little toads and all these little things, the fires don't do too well for them. That bothers me.
Yeah, but they go in their holes and
Yeah.
it's all insulated.
If they're lucky, they do.
If they're lucky, they do.
Yeah.
Same like people, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, Peggy, I just love to hear you tell these stories. I just love to have you come and share them because this is the way you learned at Mother's Knee. She was a pioneer woman of the...
And smart as a whip. That woman
And she was a teacher.
All brains,
A teacher.
I didn't take after her, however.
Oh,
but-
come on,
No. I mean, I have talents that I can do, but she was smart.
Oh, ho.
Brain matter, gray matter, whatever that's called.
Well, we'll talk about Grandma next show and just all of things that you can tell me about that little woman. I'm Bernie Martin Beck, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in. This is just fantastic. I don't have to read it. I can sit and listen to history. Thank you for tuning in, and this is Bernie Martin Beck saying goodbye for now.